So, let's talk a bit more about Attack on Titan Chapter 106. I already did a video about Gabi and Falco, and what might happen to them, but in this video, I want to talk about Eren and Armin. There's a growing divide developing between these two characters, and we're going to discuss what this means both thematically and for the future of the story. Welcome to DarkLogic Studios' Attack on Titan manga reviews and discussions. If you don't already know, these videos are going to contain spoilers, so if you haven't read the latest chapter, then what are you doing with your life? Seriously though, if you don't want spoilers, you might want to click on something else. If you're all caught up though, let's get to it. So in this chapter, there are two scenes that I want to look at specifically, involving Eren and Armin. One is the shooting range scene, and the other is the scene at the end when we see Armin talking to Annie and the crystal, and the narration dialogue that we got from him throughout this chapter. In this video, we are going to be looking at the official translation on Crunchyroll. And I'm sorry that I didn't do that for the last video, but for some reason, and I don't know if you guys had this problem as well, Chapter 106 didn't actually show up on Crunchyroll for like a week after it came out, so I don't know what was up with that, but whatever, it's here now. So we're gonna take a look at this because there was some dialogue. Of course, there's always some dialogue that was a little off in the unofficial translation, and obviously with the official translation we can get a bit more of a clearer picture of what is actually going on in these characters' heads. So let's start with the shooting range scene. Now, a lot of people have already pointed out the thematic importance of the shooting range itself, and Eren being the one shooting the gun, while Armin is actually covering his ears, and Mikasa is kind of just standing off to the side. This one scenario really says a lot about our three characters in general. Eren being the one who's firing the gun, practicing his aim, preparing to fight. He's got an unrelenting, determined look in his eye, like he's ready to fight. Armin putting his hands over his ears is of course also symbolic of the divide between these two characters. Armin is more of a pacifist. He's not aggressive like Eren is. He wants to understand the people of Marley and the people of the outside world and avoid conflict. And Mikasa, she's just kind of quietly observing. She's kind of caught in the middle between her two childhood friends who are obviously growing apart from each other, and that must be very difficult for her because Eren and Armin are her family, and as we know, she lost her parents when she was younger. She thinks of Eren as family. I'm sure she thinks of Armin as family as well. They're like her brothers. And so the rift between these two is gonna be really hard on her. And Mikasa is such a quiet and reserved character. It's really hard to tell what she's thinking. Obviously she's a lot like Levi in that respect. She's got a lot of love and respect for both these guys, so I can only imagine she's just hoping that things are gonna turn out okay. I mean, I don't know what she's gonna do if she ends up having to choose between them. I imagine she would end up going with Eren because she's obviously really attached to Eren, but of course we all know how she reacted when Armin almost died as well, so I mean, who knows? The only way I think that Mikasa would actually choose Armin over Eren is if Eren made a decision that she just couldn't go along with, that her moral compass just wasn't okay with, and if that happens, she's gonna have to figure out how to separate from Eren emotionally and deal with that. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with Mikasa and the choice that she makes. But anyway, let's get back to Eren and Armin and take a closer look at these scenes. So we open with Eren firing a shot. Armin's got his hands over his ears and he's talking about the port, or the harbor, that they're building. And he says that it's going really quickly ever since the Marleyan military engineers started helping out. Mikasa says that she's surprised they agreed to. Then Armin says, sure, we were suspicious of each other at first, so things didn't go well then. But once time passed and we started looking at each other as people, not our titles, I think we can understand one another. Mikasa gives him a little smile, but Eren doesn't sound very impressed. He says, Armin, did you see anything in Bertolt's memories? Armin says, oh, no, nothing that seemed useful. And Eren says, we don't have time. Zeke's only got 3 years left to live. And Armin says, yeah, about that. Do you think it's okay for us to just go along with Yelena's plans like this? Mikasa asks him, is there a problem? Armin says, I just wonder if the only way for us to protect the Eldian people really is to threaten the world with that rumbling. It would probably be like a nightmare. The whole world would have to live in fear. Can't we talk before things get that bad? We can speak to Marley and others around the world once the port is done, if we just resolved our misunderstandings. And Eren says, what? What do you mean by misunderstandings? You know, like people thinking we're scary. The world sees us as monsters that can turn into titans. Are they mistaken about that? And I get kind of quiet for a second, and Mikasa says, but we've been able to get along with some Marleyans. Eren says, how many? Most of those Marleyan soldiers are still glaring at us from inside the prison walls. Mikasa says, well, if we just spent more time. Yeah, Armin says, we need time. And Eren says, yes, and to buy us that time, we'll make it so they can't mess with us. So again, in this scene, Armin is expressing his desire to find a diplomatic solution, a peaceful solution, one that's not going to deter people from attacking Paradis because of fear. And in fact, in the real world, one of the ways that we keep peace between countries is through trade, because we want things that other countries have, and they want things that we have, or they want the money that we will give them for selling us the things that they have. That keeps the peace, because people want things and people want money more than they want war most of the time. So even though it may not be the pure solution that Armin might think it is, although I think Armin understands that the world isn't that black and white, but anyway, it's definitely a lot better, I think, than keeping the world at bay by threatening them with mass destruction. I mean, if you think about it, what kind of world are these actions going to create? If Armin had his way, yes, they would be putting themselves at risk. However, it also gives them the chance to build a future that's not pervaded by fear and aggression and war. Because although Eren is trying to make sure that his people are protected, by doing what he did, he's also given away that chance. That opportunity that Armin was talking about is now lost completely. And that's really sad, because like I said way back when I started this channel and made my first videos about Armin, I've always believed that he was going to be the one who was going to want to find the diplomatic solution, he's going to want to find the peaceful solution, and he's going to be the one person who's going to be able to accomplish that. I think that Erwin believed in him, and I think that Eren believed in him at some point. I know that he did, in fact, but because of what happened to him, his perspective changed. And Eren feels this urgency, because of the memories and because of what he knows, to make sure that Paradis is not destroyed. So for Eren, he could not see that peaceful solution that Armin could. At this point, he can't even wrap his mind around it. The idea that the world would ever accept a bunch of people that have been hated for this long, people that can literally turn into monsters, because even if Armin's ideas came to fruition, there would still be tension, there would still be fear, there would still be people who hate Eldians, and it would take a long time, if ever, for that tension to go away. The only way that that can happen is if the Titans were gone. However, the Titans are merely a product of humanity, like all weapons. In my opinion, like I said before, I think that Titans are man-made. I think they were created from scientific experimentation as weapons for war. So, would the destruction of the Titans really bring peace to the world? I don't think so. Human beings are always going to have conflict. The Titans just make the Eldian people a really easy scapegoat. Because in the end, it really doesn't matter that they can turn into Titans. They haven't done anything worse than what Marley has done to other nations, not just the Eldians. So, the Marley, who ironically have been warmongering probably the entire time they've been in power. In the past 100 years, Paradis has literally been under a vow of non-interference. They have not done anything over the past 100 years, and yet they are the ones that are hated by the world. Seems a little ironic, but again, it's because they can turn into Titans. It's easy for the world to look at them and say that they're bad because of that. But anyway, again, what I think is really heartbreaking about this chapter is not just because Eren and Armin are growing apart, it's because, like I said, this opportunity that Armin wanted to have to create peace with Marley and the other nations is gone. There's no going back from what Eren did now, and that's like really depressing, because that's kind of what I was hoping would happen, that Armin would find a way to create peace and stop the cycle, but it's never that easy, is it? And as he's sitting there at the end talking to Annie, he says, "Today was the funeral for the 8 soldiers who died in the last operation, including Sasha. I thought I understood Eren better than anyone. even Mikasa. But I don't understand him anymore. Eren was ready to do it, even by himself. Whether we helped him or abandoned him, the outcome would have been awful either way. But now, we've killed a huge number of people. Nothing was left untouched. Not battleships, not soldiers, not civilians. We showed up out of nowhere and took everything from them, just like what happened to us that day. But if that military port was left untouched, Marley would have launched an immediate counterattack on this island. We've abandoned any hope for peace now, but we had to do it. Just like you guys that day. Right, Annie? So in this scene, we can see that Armin is pretty depressed. He says he doesn't understand Eren anymore. We see him holding the seashell, the same seashell that he found on the beach when they finally made it to the ocean. I imagine he's feeling a huge sense of loss for the fact that Eren has changed so much that he feels unreachable at this point. Armin holding this seashell in his hand, I think, is symbolic of his desire to hold on to the dreams that they had when they were children. It's a reminder of how things used to be, or maybe how things could have been. The seashell itself could be symbolic of a few things. A dead remnant of something that once was. Or perhaps that Eren is becoming a shell of his former self. Or perhaps even the emptiness that Armin feels without his best friend. And as he's sitting there, holding the shell in his hand, he's talking to Annie. Somebody he feels like he could relate to and that would understand him, where he is right now. With Eren becoming the way he is, and with poor Mikasa stuck in the middle of them, Armin doesn't have anybody to talk to anymore. And I'm not sure if Jean or any of the other Survey Corps members would truly understand what he's thinking and feeling. But he knows that Annie, to some extent, would probably understand exactly how he feels. Armin is really good at reading people, and Armin and Annie had a little bit of a rapport going on. Annie liked and respected Armin. She appreciated the fact that he told her that she was a good person. You know, in the scene when they were waiting to get their 3D maneuver gear checked because somebody had killed the 2 Titans that Hanji caught. So, when she had the opportunity to kill Armin, she didn't do it, because she actually cared about Armin. Actually, Annie cared about pretty much everyone. Even though she kept to herself, she is a good person, and she did what she did for the same reason that Armin did what he did. Neither one of them wanted to do it, but they had to protect themselves, their family, and their people. So they have that much in common. I do think these two characters actually give a damn about each other, and for that reason, I'm hoping that Armin and Annie will work together at some point. And let's not forget, Eren might have had a little bit of a crush on Annie too. It did seem to kind of suggest that a little bit, at least Mikasa thought so. So, and if Annie does come out of that crystal, and she will, I hope she does, she better, then there are a number of things that could possibly happen. She could have an effect on Armin, she can have an effect on Eren, she can have an effect on Reiner, on Zeke maybe. Well, I don't know about Zeke, we'll see. He seems like a cold-hearted bastard, but anyway. Her waking up and coming out of that crystal could have a huge impact. And she could of course have an effect on Gabi and Falco. So a lot of interesting things could happen, but we'll get into that in another video. Alright guys, time to wrap this one up. Let me know what you think is going to happen with Eren and Armin in the comments. How far apart do you think they're going to grow? Are they going to become enemies, or are they going to kiss and make up at some point? That doesn't seem very likely. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share, comment, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. Visit me on Facebook and Twitter, and check out my Patreon if you want to help support this channel. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.